everybody, to another Hyperight Data Talks. Today we are here with Dr. Indy Leclercq. Indy is manager data science at Talabat. Hello, Indy. Welcome, and how are you?
Hi, Anna. I'm really good, thanks. Thanks for having me with this interview series. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure also. Before we jump into today's topic, can you briefly give us an introduction about yourself and share what is your current working focus?
Sure. So I am part French, part Singaporean. I've been living in the UAE for about 8 years now in Dubai with my wife and daughter. I've been in the data science space for about the same amount of time, about 8 years. And before that, I did a PhD in astrophysics in the UK, which gave me kind of the skills to set up in the world of data science, transitioning from academia. And currently I'm working at Talabat, which is the sort of Middle East's biggest food delivery company. And I have a focus on data science, but specifically customer experience and growth. And it turns out I have a bit of a focus on the operational side of things, which I'll probably get to a bit later in the interview.
Yes, that's a great introduction. Can you share a little bit about your experience in operational data science, and also how can one ensure that machine learning models translate into tangible impact, and particularly within the food delivery industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what I like to call operational data science is where you have the intersection between algorithms, models, and sort of more abstract data points with tangible impacts from a real-world operations team, or people on the ground doing stuff. It's particularly relevant to the food delivery industry, or indeed anything such as ride-sharing, taxis. One of my introductions to this world was via working for Emirates, the airline. So, of course, there's a huge operational component involved in that. So you have to marry the data you get with how you can actually change the way people are doing things on the ground, and that's quite an interesting problem to solve. In order to do that, I think for me, it might be a bit counterintuitive based on what all the hype is around AI, ML, and data. But it's simplify, simplify, simplify. You can do very powerful things with quite simple models. And once you have been able to achieve a result or an impact, then you can start to build on top of that and try and make things more complex if you need to. But at first approach, always try go something simple. And let the data do the work for you. If you've got a strong data set and an intuitive and simple way of understanding it, often you can have a large impact already.
And you mentioned your background in astrophysics and also the transition to data science. How do you think that your academic journey has influenced your approach to problem solving, especially within the field of data science?
Yeah, it's a bit of I think it's a transition that a lot of people make. A lot of data science practitioners come from an academic background. I think the great thing about academia is that it's very open-ended, and you sometimes have some very hard problems to solve, which means that you have to break it up into small pieces. And that's kind of the approach that I have even today, is that when faced with a business problem or some issues that stakeholders are facing, sometimes it can seem that it's just really wide-ranging problem and all-encompassing, but if you break it down into smaller pieces and again simplify and figure out what the data is telling you, then you can tackle it bit by bit and continue to deliver impact bit by bit. What I do miss a little bit from academia is that little bit of complexity, a little bit of more time to work on things. I think in the day-to-day running of a company, there's always a new priority. There's always something that needs to be actioned. There's always something that needs to be delivered. And I think that's something that I had to adapt to when transitioning from academia, where you have a much longer time frame to kind of work on maybe a more involved problem. But it's two different aspects, and I have to say I enjoy both.
And you also mentioned that you have spent your 8 years in the UAE, right? Could you touch upon some challenges that you have come across while implementing ML models specifically in this market, and how have you addressed them, and also how have you ensured effective deployment of these models?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we face any specific challenges that other practitioners around the world don't face. The main one is always lack of data or accessing more data. I think because it's quite a small market and because maybe some of the infrastructure isn't as mature as in the US or in Europe, at least in the early stages of my career, I think that's less relevant today. But one of the main challenges was always potentially getting access to enough data to be able to build powerful enough models. The way you get around this is being creative, trying to expand your data sets, trying to sample creatively, using statistics to your advantage. And again, the thing about this operational data science team, if you keep it simple, you don't necessarily need that much data. So, a more complex model requires more data to perform more effectively. But if you're able to leverage smaller amounts of data to still get powerful insights, using simple models, then that's what you want to do. Perfect is the enemy of good, as they say. So that's what I've tried to kind of go for.
And what about on the other side when it comes to opportunities of these applications? And we all know that Gen AI is rapidly advancing. So what potential applications do you foresee for both Talabat and similar platforms in the MENA region? How do you envision the integration of Gen AI and into existing data science initiatives?
Yeah, I think Gen AI is super, super exciting. I think the entire field is really, really excited about the possibilities that it offers. There's many aspects to what Gen AI can offer, from a internal productivity aspect, so easier to write code, easier to discover documentation, all the way through a user interaction aspect. Obviously, we're going to get more powerful things like chatbots and customer service. And I think there's even like a sort of a third avenue of unknown unknowns, where we don't know how far this can take us, and we don't know what lies ahead, basically, in terms of use cases. We have a lot of data. We're going to try and leverage it as much as we can. And overall in the region, I think the UAE itself has positioned itself from a research perspective and from a development perspective to be a top player, with the Falcon AI model, the LLM model, sorry, and really trying to keep up with the leaders like OpenAI and Meta, obviously. So I think there's a lot of exciting stuff to come, a lot of interesting work that's being done, and the next couple of years are going to be absolutely fascinating to watch as the power of data gets multiplied by 10 times or 100 times.
Can you share maybe some insights into how is the current state of data science adoption in this region, and are there any specific trends for this region or similar things to this market?
Yeah, so I mean, to talk about the current state, I want to look back maybe at the state of things when I first arrived in the region. Back then, about 8 years ago, data science was really just appearing for the first time. You had BI, you had sort of analysts, but you didn't really have this concept of data science. And I have to say, in 8 years, it's grown massively, and now everyone is very much aware of what data science is and how companies can leverage their data. I think, yeah, the pace has been really rapid. Companies have adapted and evolved really quickly to try and get the most out of their data and the increasing amounts of data that they have. I think there's varying levels of maturity today. We have the big homegrown companies such as Kareem and Talabat, who very much have a solid data infrastructure and know exactly what, and have a very good plan of what to do with their data and a solid workforce. You also have a very strong fintech sector in the region. The big banks are really trying to push that forward, and the small players as well, the startups. There's a very innovation-friendly environment when it comes to fintech, I think. We're seeing now some startups come up with the rise of LLMs, and the UAE has always been a big booster for innovation and technology. So, of course, there's a lot of support for that. I think in terms of challenges, sometimes there is a pooling or concentration of talent in the US, because that's where everything starts. That's where Silicon Valley is. That's where all the venture capital is. And so sometimes it can be difficult to get the top talents to come, across the world here in Dubai. But we are seeing more and more people come from the US, from Europe as well, because Dubai is such an attractive place to live. So I think, at the end of the day, that challenge is being rapidly addressed as we're able, as a region, we're able to attract more and more top talent and really, get up there with the big players in terms of data science, but it's just AI in general.
And last but not least, I would say, as someone who is involved in data science, what would your advice be to any data scientists or organizations who look to make an impact in this particular market, especially in the light of technologies like Gen AI?
Yeah, so I think, in my experience, a good data scientist really is a combination of two skill sets. One is the technical skill set. So, can you code? Can you work with data, with numbers? Can you build models and interpret data? But the other side of it, which is equally as important, are the soft skills. And in fact, they're probably going to get more important as, we see Gen AI enables people to build entire apps in a few days, or, analyze data sets all by itself. But the human skills of tying all that together and explaining that data to a CEO or, an investor, and explaining, what decisions should be made based on that analysis, because that's really the key part of data, is what is it telling you and what decisions can you make based on that information. That's at the core of data science. It's basically decision-making science. And so if you're up and coming and starting up in the world, try your very best to link data to real life problems and to the real world around you, because that's, the world generates data. That every data point represents someone clicking on a video or someone scrolling through an app, and ultimately what we're trying to do is look at what people's behavior is and how companies can make decisions based on those behaviors. So it's always really important to have that soft skill side, be able to understand your data, but also just explain it to people and enable decision makers to make the best decisions.
Thank you, Indy. I'm certain that this advice would be valuable for any data scientist or any data science practitioner listening to this interview. And thank you for such insights, and thank you for sharing your perspective on this topic. Also, for everyone listening, Indy will be presenting on operational data science, ensuring ML models can deliver real-world impact at the Data Innovation Summit MENA, which will be in Dubai in 3 weeks. And stay tuned for more insights on this topic. Thank you, Indy, once again, and see you at the summit.
Thanks, Yana. Thanks, really appreciate it.